Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jonita Foster, and I will be facilitating the DebiCheck recognition ceremony today. We are going to take a trip down memory lane, have a quick view of some key project milestones, and then throw in a little bit of fun, and then the moment you've all been waiting for, individually recognizing everybody that had a hand in making DebiCheck a reality. To build anything that's world first is not an easy feat. To build it while collaborating with other industry players that might be your competitors isn't any easier, and to do it partly during a global pandemic seems absolutely impossible. But you did it. The Dolos and the CAT scan and the creepy crawly and the first heart transplant are all South African firsts that are already celebrated. But today we are going to celebrate the creation and the creators of DebiCheck.
DebiCheck is a system which protects you as a consumer. It ensures that the debit orders that come out of your account have authenticated, you know about them and you're happy, and you know that the date, you know the amount that needs to come out of your account. So there's nothing that will just come out without you having authenticated it.
It provides a level of comfort and safety to the consumers, so that you don't just have these random debit orders hitting your account, you're in control. That's the coolest thing about DebiCheck.
The SAP started getting concerned about the level of disputes in the debit system, and specifically in the early debit order system way back in 2013. And we started engaging the market participants about causes of this and the fact that the SAP would like to see change. In its catalyst role, it wanted to see change so that we can retain confidence in the debit order system. Engagements then ensued on possibilities of what can be done, and two specific interventions were engaged upon. The first one being the strengthening of controls in the debit order system to manage this abuse. That is, ensuring that there's a sort of verification of collectors so that we can root out the rogue users. This is the debit order abuse process that is underway. Secondly, the enhancement of systems to introduce stronger mandates in the system that led to the establishment of the DebiCheck system, or then known as the Authenticated Collection System. But the SAP then only issued a directive for the market to move towards the implementation in 2017. This directive was further repealed and reviewed in 2018 and 2020. So that's in short the background that led to the establishment of the DebiCheck system. The change management issue was one of the challenges that we faced. Here what we mean is we had the old early debit order systems known as Authenticated Early Debit Order System, as well as the non-authenticated early debit order system. So the early collection community had built their processes around these systems. And now you wanted reforms where we needed to strengthen mandate and implement the DebiCheck system. And you can imagine challenges relating to change, because parties needed to change their business processes to new ways that were aligned to the DebiCheck system. That level of change and some form of resistance in a way was quite difficult, but we managed to forge on and ultimately implement. That's the one challenge. The second challenge relates to the possible underestimation of complexity that this new system entailed, And these, I would say, focuses on maybe 3 specific areas. Complexity of bringing multiplicity of stakeholders and having them to agree and move together without being dragged back by the slowest mover. That was one of the issues. Secondly, the technology systems that needed to be implemented to enable what the DebiCheck is providing at the moment was somewhat underestimated, but ultimately hard work was done to realize the goal. And lastly, the consumer behavior, the underestimation of the change to the consumer behavior, having them to react in certain ways, and the interventions that had to be undertaken relating to consumer education, awareness, and all those were some of the challenges that we faced, and some of them we still face, but to a larger degree the system has been bedded down, but there's enhancements to systems that are underway, as well as consumer awareness and education that is underway to ensure that our consumers behave in the way that is in alignment with the system. We, as the regulator and the overseer of the national payment system, would like to commend the market participants and stakeholders for their collaboration, commend the project team that coordinated this process from PASA for their management of this process, leading to the successful implementation of DebiCheck under very difficult circumstances based on the challenges that I mentioned. BankServe Africa at the center as the operator of the core of the system, as well as the banks that are enabling these collections, the system operators, and the collecting parties or entities that invested in the system changes. All these parties had to invest in system changes and bedding down challenges in those systems. That contributes to the key goal relating to modernization of the national payment system, and specifically the modernization of the debit order system in the early window as a key pillar in the modernization, as I mentioned, of the broader national payment system. This would stand the national payment system in good stead and is one of the key pillars of our modernization efforts focused on the broader NPS. There's other pillars that are still forthcoming in the EFT credit environment, in the RTGS, but this was the first pillar that was delivered in terms of the modernization of the national payment system that we are currently having underway.
was very scared because it was my first time interacting with payments. I've been doing all sorts of projects, I've been doing all sorts of work, but then I was told about DebiCheck. I couldn't even understand what DebiCheck is. Then internally in the bank, I had to attend some technical meetings, and these people were talking technical language that I couldn't even make head to tails. I think it took me about 6 months just to understand what DebiCheck is. It's just a mere debit order that you just needed to authenticate as a client. The main feeling, I think it's anxiety, because you are part of an industry group that is building DebiCheck. And you look at internally at your bank and you think, will we make it? Will we really survive this journey? Are we gonna be the ones that make the system fall? And not only that, you look internally again, it's like, will people understand this? Because it is so technical. From a change management perspective, you need to now bring it back to a language where people would understand it, where people would appreciate it, and there would be adoption in terms of internally first, because if there's no internal adoption, you can't even take it out to customers.
We were definitely excited about working together on the solution that makes the client experience of debit orders a lot more secure and give them a bit more control. Because at the time when DebiCheck was launched, we need to remember that the debit order abuse and the 99 Rand schemes and those kind of things were sort of just going crazy. The consumers were really at the short end of some of these schemes, and nothing was really done by the industry at the time in terms of fighting it. We had some initiatives internally, each bank doing their own thing, but we did not give it sufficient attention when we needed to. I think it was just a difficult time for everybody as well. In 2010, just after 2008 financial crisis, all those kind of things. So we had all sorts of other things on our plate, and we needed to start focusing. So the industry needed to get together, and sometimes the banks just need that little nudge to work together faster. And I think that was necessary. So yes, we were excited to a certain extent, but we knew that it will take a lot of work to get the collaboration between the banks, as well as this project looked at the non-banks as well to participate.
Because it actually went into touching the sales, credit, and just business processes, it brought quite a great depth of learning. And I think through the process, as we found ourselves, there was a lot of heated debates through the process, I guess, all around, internally in the bank, in the industry. But I think, the people warmed up to it. I guess a lot of the guys that were involved in the DebiCheck project have found themselves in a far better position in terms of understanding payments, understanding collections, how it worked. So I think overall, the guys were quite, came in with a lot of hesitation, but over the period of time warmed up to it. But I think one of the things on the DebiCheck project was the fatigue, right? So a project of this nature running for so long, sometimes you get into multiple troughs of disillusionment, right, because of the length of the project. And you're kind of saying, as people working on like to see quick turnarounds, like to see quick achievements, but DebiCheck didn't quite give them that, right, because it was like challenge after challenge that we had to maneuver through. But I think it's just that fatigue that set in, and that disillusionment for a lot of people, but I guess a lot of the guys found themselves in a far better position, when we landed the project, I guess, through the process. Yeah.
Well, in terms of the tough times, yes, very complex project, but we had to stay committed and aligned on the objectives of the project. But also then where potential outcomes could impact our markets, negatively, to bring that, to the table, and along with the colleagues in the banking environment, also the regulators, to consider that feedback and position from non-banks to ensure that we mitigate. So staying committed, showing up, with a well-articulated position, that really assisted us to get through the project, but not only get through it, to make sure that we mitigated, many of the challenges that could have adversely affected our market.
We had multiple celebrations of small little successes. So when we landed a functionality or core functionality, we were quite pleased. We celebrated that with the tech teams just to keep the momentum going, right? But I think, just from a FirstRand perspective, when I took over the project, I guess FirstRand was trailing the rest of the industry, right? We were we were at the back end of the DebiCheck program because we had multiple churn of resources, and we were trying to figure out how would this project work, right? So I think, the teams, we really had to refocus the teams, bring in new resources onto the program, and just re-emphasize the purpose of what we're trying to achieve, right? And I think that driving force solidified a lot of the resources to try and keep pace through those challenges. Lots of heated debates, lots of gnashing of teeth, arguments with business teams, with technical teams. But I think we found each other, right? So I guess the key thing for us was, it was quite a stressful project, but we didn't play the individuals, right? We played the issues and more or less separated the individuals from the issues and tried to just to keep pace with what was happening and just calm the fears. So, and I think one of the key things that helped us a lot was that we had very strong executive sponsorship on the program. So from our executive perspective, like Jacques Saliers, Raj Makanji, Gordon Little, lots of strong support from those executives, recognizing the need for us to do this, and constantly re-emphasizing, coming back to what was the purpose of actually doing this, right? It was to safeguard customers against rogue activity that was playing itself out in the industry at that point in time.
How do you manage multi-stakeholder environments and bring everyone together, to create something meaningful?
When you really get stuck in and start to uncover what it's all about, you start to look at what opportunities does this offer the business? Where can we actually differentiate ourselves? What can we do differently that nobody else is going to be able to do in terms of making use of this payment system and empowering the users who we support?
What it allowed me to do is actually get closer to the customer experience kind of aspects. And really both on the user side, juristics, corporate, commercial type customers, as well as the retail customers, right? And the behavioral aspects of how consumers out there see debit orders, how they manage their environments. We've got this is the DebiCheck project aimed to solve, like, it's two sides of a conundrum, right? The one on the user community side to make sure that they are fit and proper, but also on the customer side, right? Because there's massive amounts of cash flow management in this environment. There still is, but DebiCheck was aiming to solve both those environments, and obviously they're quite conflicting or opposing forces. So from that perspective, it allowed me to really learn, and get more in-depth knowledge on how all of these environments operate, which was quite cool. It was neat, although there was a lot of pain through the process.
Lesson learned is, even if there's a risk and a problem identified, look at the more difficult problems and start addressing those sooner, rather than taking the easy ones on the low-hanging fruit and dealing with those. I think that would probably be the lesson that we would like to stress, is that go for the difficult ones and try and resolve those so you can have proper debate and solutioning on those.
The idea of making it inclusive was very important. And also what was very important was having the guidance of the Reserve Bank along the journey. Those kind of conversations are particularly important because there's always going to be bottlenecks, there's always going to be changes, there's always going to be areas where we disagree on. I think where the maturity of the team showed itself was that they developed an understanding, they developed the ability to work with one another, and were able to pull together something quite complex. So I would do that the same. I would maintain the longevity and the sort of dynamics between team members similarly.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I want to just share a few views on the AC project. And for me, it was something that really were quite important in the first few years that I've joined PASA. I think there's a number of stories to share. But I think globally, if you look at the whole project, one can look at this as a very important modernization effort. This was actually South Africa's first foray into any type of ISO 20022 project. And the evidence that we're getting from across the world around modernization, ISO 20022 countries that are going this road, that the very first project is not always the easiest. Definitely in DebiCheck's case, also, it was not an easy project. It does spearhead our modernization effort. But I can clearly remember the first day that I walked into the steerco, and that was 3 years into the project already, where the banks basically had a discussion about their inability to even ping each other with basic messages, just to kind of make sure that there's a receptibility for some of the messages. Also at that point, that was in 2016, there was a date looming in October. That was, in other words, about 10 months down the road at that point, where this new project were going to be switched on, and that ADO and ADO at the same time were going to be switched off. We quickly realized that this plan is not going to work, and I think a big part of our efforts on the AC project, or DebiCheck as it was later called, was to really navigate the matter with the Reserve Bank and to make sure that we get a more realistic plan agreed with the industry and with the Reserve Bank. And even despite such a plan, which was eventually accepted, even later then converted into a directive, and you will know about the directive dates, which were also extended twice, it was still a very difficult and hard slog to get to the actual point where this project were implemented. In 2017, fortunately, the first workable AC product actually did go live. It was basic without some of the more fundamental functions, overlay functions. And then in 2018, a year afterwards, we had the full DebiCheck product suite with all its functionality going, but with a lot of instability. And we actually had to navigate this as we went. I have a huge appreciation for the efforts of the technical authority, the SWAT teams, various other people in the banks that really worked very hard day and night to actually make this project successful, to stabilize the product, to make sure that there's something that can go to the market that really resembles what a collection system really should look like. We still had the looming directive dates, and that despite a pandemic that also hit us. So In 2021, fortunately, I think we all bit the bullet, and in May we complied with the directive date, and as an industry we're also ready then at the end of October, as per the second directive date, to actually then implement this system. Now, I think we can all look back at this journey and say it's been a difficult journey, but we should also feel proud about our achievements. It's the first ISO 20022 project that has been implemented in South Africa. It's a one of its kind project. Nowhere else in the world were there similar projects, similar payment systems, any lessons that we could learn. We had to learn those lessons ourselves. We did something that is unique in the world, and for that we should give ourselves credit. So I want to thank each and every one of you, whether you sat on a technical authority, whether you were involved in the SWAT teams, whether you were working in your bank in this particular project to stabilize the project, to kind of appease the clients, to pacify them, keep them happy until the system started to stabilize adequately. Really, I don't want to ignore what it actually took from everybody to brought us to this particular point. It's been a huge achievement. You should give yourself a pat on the back. You can feel proud of yourself. Despite the fact that we all say never again a DebiCheck, yes, and there will never be a DebiCheck system again. This has been our first. What follows now is the second and the third. But give yourself a pat on the back, because you've done it. We've implemented it. There's still a journey to go. But there's also so many positive things that flows from DebiCheck. We have the outline of a system in RMS, which is a spin-off from DebiCheck, that could replace EFTs somewhere in the future. The SARB is very positive about that. We have a debit order system that is really first world class, dealing with unique South African problems. And we should feel proud of ourselves. And I just want to thank each and everybody that were involved in this project. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon for those of you who have joined after we've started. My name is Juanita Foster and I'm your facilitator for this DebiCheck recognition ceremony. So that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the comedy part of this event ceremony, as every high-profile event ceremony has. But as I am not a comedian by any stretch of the imagination, we asked members of the SteerCo for a little bit of help to identify individuals who earned a few light-hearted, meritorious mentions during this project. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for this part of the ceremony, I would really appreciate it if you could participate in the following way. If you hear your name called, or if you'll see your name on screen, then please switch on your camera, not your microphone, just your camera, and give us a little bit of a recognition wave. And if this is one of the days that you really don't want to appear on camera, then just click the yay or the celebration or the thumbs up button so we can see that you joined us today. Right, let us get started with the first Maurits. The Wikipedia merit goes to the one who everyone asked anything about everything. And here we have Sean Mouton from Absa Bank, Amit Rambaran from African Bank, Pravashni Mupanar from Bank Serve Africa, Nicole Matthias from First Rand Bank, Francois Smits from Nedbank, Mariki Minsha from PASA, and Jay Bukareth from Standard Bank. Congratulations, all you Wikipedia people. The next merit is the duct tape merit, the one who found a way to make it work despite everything. And here we call on Neil du Plessis from African Bank, Saleha Nabi from BankServe Africa, Dirk Ehlers from Capitec Bank, Sulona Sebran from First Rand Bank, Graham Jackson from Nedbank, Lloyd Miles from PASA, and Colette Bell from Standard Bank. Good job, everybody. The Picasso merits goes to those who always saw things differently. And that is Niels Erasmus from Absa Bank, Nkensani Mushwana from African Bank, Matome Magwele from BankServe Africa, Bernie de Preer from First Rand Bank, Kerry-Ann Eaton from Nedbank, Viren Gokal from PASA, and Nomi Kleba from Standard Bank. Congratulations! The fire extinguisher merits, and I'm sure there were quite a few of these during this fantastic project, goes to the one who calmed everyone down. Thank you very much to Derek van der Merwe, African Bank, Gitesh Bana, BankServe Africa, Tapelo Nkatso from First Rand Bank, Ian Carter, Nedbank, Dave Liebenberg from PASA, and John Anderson from Standard Bank. Thanks for that job that you fulfilled in your teams. The red flag merit goes to the one who warned where things would go wrong. Judith Grobler from Absa Bank, Percy Ngobeni from African Bank, Hermine Hongane from BankServe Africa, Elsabe Jacobs from Bidvest Bank, Iniola Waldi from First Rand Bank, Iqbal Kader from Nedbank, Matthew Koepke from PASA, and Celeste Freytag from Standard Bank. Thank you so much for keeping an eye on things and warning everybody when things would go wrong. And the next merit are the silver lining merits to the ones who thought that things were going to end well. Natasha Johnson from African Bank, Trinita Landsman, BankServe Africa, Andy Davis from Capitec Bank, Marilyn Thompson from First Rand Bank, Francis Brunt from Nedbank, Andre Stradon from PASA, and Willie Neetling from Standard Bank. Thank you so much for dipping your paintbrushes into the silver lining paint can and just painting linings wherever it was needed during the project. The Project Clown merit, because every single project, no matter how hard it is, always has one of these, one or two of these, the one who made everyone laugh. Johannes Loubser from African Bank, Joseph Matthews from BankServe Africa, Katlego Segoe from First Rand Bank, Kevin Maestri from PASA, and Pat Jennings from Standard Bank. A pat on the back for you, and I hope you have a little bit of a giggle as well. The Night Owl merits. Now, this one we couldn't fit all of your names on one single screen, so it was really, really hard for the steer code to nominate people, because we are very much aware that everybody pulled really odd hours to make this happen. But these Night Owl merits goes to those who consistently work the latest hours. Antonia Crawford from African Bank, Lisecha Magongwa from BankServe Africa, Tareen Kleinschmidt from Capitec Bank, Badrunisha Fared from First Rand Bank, Jayshree Maesri from Nedbank, Preshin Bunsilal from Standard Bank. The umpire merit goes to those who kept everyone in line. Tracy Donnelly from African Bank, blow your whistle. Naveen Munthri from BankServe Africa, Andre Boer from Capitec Bank, Pietro Knutzer from First Rand Bank, Mareike Guest, Nedbank, Ina Meyering from PASA, and Chantal Peterson from Standard Bank. And then we get to the helping hand merit, the one who was always willing to help out. Ntabiseng Manye from Absa Bank, Don Limouers, Access Bank, Elma Jacobs from African Bank, Dimakatsu Nkludibe, BankServe Africa, Odette Rademeyer from Capitec Bank, Justine Losper from First Rand Bank, Ameshri Governor from Nedbank, Yanni Fenter from PASA, and Jasantha Governor from Standard Bank. Thank you so much for being a helping hand to your team members. Next is the Mission Impossible merit, the one whose jam-packed diary made it nearly impossible to schedule meetings. And this merit goes to the entire African Bank management team from African Bank, Natasha Jeffries from Bank South Africa, Umduduzi Nkumalo from First Rand Bank, Peter Visagie from Nedbank, Maurits Pretorius from PASA, Pinky Rabutapi from Standard Bank. The early bird merit goes to the one who always kept to deadlines and meeting start times. Ignatia Lekwane from African Bank, Lindsay Wilson from Bank South Africa, Louise Lekay, First Rand Bank, Charmaine Staten from PASA, Quinton Terry from Standard Bank. Let's just display those ones again for the early birds. Well done, good job. I hope all of your cameras are on. And then the thinking emoji merit, the one who contributed in their own quiet way. Johan Visser from African Bank, Nosipho Ngobeni from Bank South Africa, Ferdy Hendricks from Capitec Bank, Thabo Tsotsetse from First Rand Bank, Charles Cooper from Nedbank, Phumeza Nkai from PASA, and Cynthia Foster from Standard Bank. The coffee pot merit goes to the one who doesn't just drink coffee, but through this entire project, coffee absolutely flowed through their veins. Nikki Ramaruma from African Bank, Lucas Lotz from Bank South Africa, Mazida Karolia Sikerki, First Rand Bank, Anna-Marie de Kooker from Nedbank, Anthony Radford from PASA, and Janine Steinwitz from Standard Bank. Have a cup of coffee, go for it, you've earned it. And then the undefinable merit, because there are some of those in every project as well. The one who was the glue that held everything together. In African Bank, this was Grace Ngwenywa. For Bank South Africa, Charles de Swart. Anna Madzimwazira from First Rand Bank, Gavin Payne from Nedbank, Narishka Govender from PASA, and Rian Duvenacher from Standard Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, those were a few of the light-hearted, fun bits of things. It's the comedy part of the ceremony. But if we get serious, what I understand from this project is that everybody worked incredibly hard and put in incredible hours and gave of themselves and learned new things and worked their fingers to the bone and just showed up to get this done, even under extremely difficult circumstances. So the awards for the ceremony goes to each and every single one of you. And in the next couple of weeks, you will be receiving your physical award in commemoration of your duty for the South African National Payment System and to recognize the hard work that you have done. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And now we will be displaying all of the individual names that played a role in making DebiCheck a reality. And I now hand over to Maurits Pretorius from PASA to close the ceremony for us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for attending.
Thank you, Janita. I think it's on a day like this that you realize that you're standing on the shoulders of so many people when you think about a project like this. I think it's just human, and it's deemed to happen that some names have not been displayed today. We recognize that and just want to say, don't worry if you don't see your name. We'll still get to you. We'll make sure that everybody is receiving the appropriate recognition for this project. I would like to end off today and perhaps stay with Winston Churchill a little bit. I think he's very famous for his words after the Battle of Britain, but with the World War II still continuing, where he said it's not the end, neither is it the beginning, but it's perhaps the end of the beginning. And I think we can think about DebiCheck in a similar way. It's probably the end of the beginning, and therefore it's appropriate for us to stand back for a moment and to recognize what we've achieved. But the journey is far from completion. Firstly, the debit order journey. I think there's so much still that needs to happen in this space. So many enhancements still that is already in book of works in the banks with PASA, etc. So many other ISO 20022 modernization efforts, and in many ways I think DebiCheck was the one project that made us all fit for what is still coming, with the Rapid Payments Initiative in mind and such. It was a difficult project. I continue to repeat that and to recognize the fact it was not easy. Many things can be done or could have been done differently. But it was our first project. There will never be another first project in ISO 20022 in South Africa. That was South Africa's first project. And it must be recognized for that and for what we've achieved in that. I think many people stand back and look only at the shadow side of DebiCheck instead of the bright side of it. And I would probably like to end off with these words, and it also comes from our learned friend Winston Churchill, where he says it's better to be making the news than taking it, and better to be an actor rather than a critic. Now, I think if you receive that little plaque, if it stands there, if it's displayed in your study or in your office, let people know you were an actor and you were not just a critic. Let people know that you were a newsmaker and not just a news taker on the DebiCheck side. And for that, we recognize you and say thank you to you and appreciate what you've done in this space. Well, I think at this stage, I'm the only person that keeps you from the weekend, so I'm going to end it here and just say thank you once again. Probably with the weekend in mind, also famous words from Winston Churchill, who said, "I've taken more out of alcohol than alcohol has taken out of me." Thank you very much.